go chill, you know.
You guys talked about Ableton, and today it's definitely more commonplace to see DJs using this program, but you know, I did some research, and when you guys were using it, I think you were right when you said this earlier, I don't think too many people had even heard of what Ableton
is. Yeah, and had like the 1.0.
Yeah, we started Ableton 1.5, we were rocking mostly.
Why don't you explain to the listeners, because I'm sure there's still a lot of people that aren't familiar with this software, how it's shaping the music world, and how you guys utilize it in your music as well.
It came along at the perfect time for us because we'd been doing a live PA using an MPC as a sequencer MIDI trigger, and it, you know, the best thing you can do is have you have the MPC, which is got 16 touch pads, and we would trigger our loops or sections of a song by muting and unmuting stuff with those pads, and there was only so much that we could do, you know, very limited. And then when I can't, did Richard Devine tell us about Ableton?
Yeah.
Okay, Richard Devine, the IDM producer from Atlanta, is a friend of ours, and he tipped us off to this software.
Software that allows you to actually go out and play electronic music live without having it programmed in a linear fashion. You know, you can change anything at any moment. And eventually, when we got good at it, we didn't even practice or rehearse together. Like, he'd be out of the country and come back home, and we'd be like, the gig would be the first time we heard each other's new stuff, and we'd slam it together. Hey, what do you think about that? That's nice.
Yeah, it's go ahead.
I was just gonna say, talk about. I mean, I have some friends that are also using it in joint ventures, and it seems like the great thing about it is the ability to sync up between what you're working on and what you're working on, and it just creates this, I don't know, this animal, you know, this organism where, you know, no matter what you do, you're still kind of connected. And how exactly is that program structured? What exactly is going on there?
You have two the newer versions of Ableton Live software has a full production studio aspect to it, which they're really trying to push. And then it's got the initial thing, which was just the live clip-based, loop-based, time stretch software.
Yeah, the elastic audio feature, being able to take any clip, load it in, and have it automatically sync up with any other clip, regardless of tempo, regardless of pitch. It's all everything is independent. So
it stretches your loops to fit at the tempo that you set. And then also we can sync our laptops together with MIDI cables, and then all of my loops and all of his loops are both synced to each other and synced to both of ours. So, you know, it's pretty amazing that way, and then it allows you to almost do like a freestyle jazz improv. And you also have basically you have your hands on the keyboard, and you can set up these key commands to mute and unmute all your channels of loops that are playing. So you can kind of just play the keyboard and drop stuff in and out using your fingers just on the keys. And you can also set key commands to trigger sends for delays and reverbs and stuff. So you can really get creative with it. And we're learning a lot more about the newest version of Live that we picked up. It's got there's a lot more powerful features for developing envelopes and basically adjusting the way that your loops play.
Yeah, it's the only way that I've seen that you can actually improvise with computer music, electronic music. You know, I mean, besides mixing on turntables, you know, that's totally up for whatever. But in the past, when you're doing, you know, a set with sequencers, everything's programmed. You know, and it's all about triggering stuff. So with Live, it's anything goes. You know, we could throw down a really killer set if we're in the mood. If not, it could be terrible and it could suck. And that's what's real about it. You know, is that it truly is live music. You know, we're not just playing like tracks that we mixed in the studio and bounce down and, you know, from beginning to end and then mixing a new track. It's completely structured based on every single component being separated. Kicks, snares, hats, you know, every single element.
I think a lot of people get confused when they see people using laptops for performance. A lot of people feel like all you're doing is just playing a track on iTunes, and I'm sure you guys have felt that pressure when you're performing. Yeah. I guess what I'd like you to explain to maybe someone that doesn't really know what this software is capable of and what you're actually doing. A lot of people feel like maybe the auto tempo is just, it's a way to make things easier, and a lot of people see, you know, this software as making things easier. Talk a little bit about how it's, in my opinion, going in the opposite direction and expanding your ability to create really what you want just on the fly.
Well, like with DJing, for instance, your first thing that you have to tackle is the skill of beat matching. right? And once you tackle that, then you can get creative with mixing, you know, mixing frequencies, mixing different types of records together and all that, right? Well, Ableton takes that factor out, which leaves you more time to be creative with actual musical elements, you know? So in that way, it's really opened it up and expanded it to make it limitless. You don't have to match the beat, that's done, that's a given, you know? We can all match beats. You know, we come from the same background, you know? And that's something that, you know, that's just a fundamental thing, like learning a few guitar chords, you know? It's like, so it's not really, being a good DJ, I don't think the emphasis should be put on your beat matching skills. So.
Well, I come from a different camp, being one who's really into the art of DJing, and the skill of beat matching being a hallmark of a proficient and talented DJ. I think that there's a big difference between the way that we use live and the way that the people that might be being talked about that you referenced that are using it as an easy way out. If you're mixing entire tracks in Ableton, yeah, you're taking the easy way out. You should find a different way to do it, because I mean, maybe, and unless you're getting really creative with it and doing all sorts of DSP, digital signal processing, or you're using much smaller sections of songs, like the way Richie Houghton probably uses softwares of these, like, you know, this clip-based software. But if you're just a DJ and you've imported MP3s into live, which I know a lot of DJs are doing, and I know sites like Beatport are selling live-ready tracks, and you're using it just to beat match, then it's taking the easy way out.
What else are you guys using in your studio? And then also, I want to talk about the live show and the differences between what goes on at home and what goes on in the club. And maybe there's not as many differences as one would think.
Could you repeat it?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about what else you guys use in your studio besides Ableton, and also talk a bit about the difference between what goes on in the studio at home and what your live show is like.
Our studio setup is actually pretty complex, pretty proficient. You know, I've worked on it for a couple of years, getting different rooms. I've got 3 different rooms, 2 recording rooms, 1 control room where the mixer is, and you know, we have a headphone amp with cables running to every different room. So we have, you know, a nice collection of instruments, percussion instruments, guitars, basses, and about 6 different synthesizers. So when we're working on, you know, and something for an album, like a track, it's just anything goes, you know. Steven will man Logic and engineer and arrange, and I'll just be running around the house with headphones on and grabbing a different toy, you know. And we don't really use Ableton much as a writing tool.
No, not at all.
Interesting. So Ableton is really just the core of the live performance. So you do everything you need to do at home with your 1.5 million instruments and your software skills, and then so you really don't have any idea what's going to happen until you get there.
We don't have any idea what's going to happen now.